Hi VR simulation fans, welcome to another podcast. This one's going to be a little bit different than those you've seen in the past, and this very well may be like my last podcast here on VR simulation. As much as I would like to continue doing it, I've run into some issues. Let me explain. So, for a long time, I've really enjoyed technology. I love computers. I was overclocking for a long time. Right now I happen to be wearing my Tom's Hardware Overdrive t-shirt that was part of an overclocking competition I did in North America, and then it went international to Paris in 2008, where I became a world champion computer overclocker. Man, I've always loved tech. I love computer games. I love simulations, and obviously I've really gotten into that over the last couple of years. However, there's some things that are dampening my enthusiasm that are happening right now. Many of you may be familiar with these types of things. Many of you maybe not. But I've really struggled the last couple of months as I've had this time off, as I took my vacation. Do I want to continue doing the podcast? And it has nothing to do with a lack of enthusiasm for racing or for VR or for technology in general. I still really enjoy that stuff. However, it has more to do with Stockholm Syndrome. Now, that might seem really odd. For those of you who are not aware, most of you probably know what Stockholm Syndrome is, but it's where the captor starts to sympathize and then even maybe fall in love with the captor. The captive falls in love with the captor. I think I said that wrong at first. Stockholm Syndrome is usually thought of in a kidnapping situation or a hostage situation where the captor starts to sympathize and the captive starts to see the captor as a victim themselves somehow and starts to sympathize with them, and if it's over a long enough period of time, even fall in love with them. And it's a crazy concept. But I wonder if there isn't a greater version of Stockholm Syndrome that really has a broader implication across all of society, where we have become captive of the state, of the government. I'm an American, and I've grown up believing in American exceptionalism. And for those of you who pay any attention to the news lately, you may have heard the rhetoric between Obama and Putin talking about this American exceptionalism thing. Over this last year or so, I've been doing a lot more research on my own, and I guess I've started questioning my own beliefs and where they come from, and really just, quite frankly, I've started thinking for myself. Instead of allowing the media to dictate to me what I should think or how I should feel about things, I've really started to think for myself. And why does this have anything to do with sim racing? Well, it basically comes down to this, guys. I believe that in doing this podcast each week, I'm encouraging apathy. And I think apathy is a very bad thing in our society, where apathy basically means that you're so focused on your own little world, your own little bubble, you have this tunnel vision going on, that you don't care about what's going on in the rest of the world. And I think it's a very dangerous thing. And over this past year, I've started to expand my horizon a little bit and think about bigger things. Actually, it really started 2.5 years ago when the earthquake and tsunami hit in Japan, and I was living here, and afterward I went and visited the areas that were hit by the disaster. And I guess I just saw up close and personally suffering and how that affected people and stuff, and it started to change my mindset and the way I looked at the world. So anyways, as I've dug more and more into it, I've realized that, man, this propaganda machine that we have in America, which has been under development for over 100 years now and has become a very well-tuned, fine, well-lubed machine that brainwashes us from the time we're little. And even the idea of, so a lot of this might sound conspiratorial or something along those lines, but if you think about that, even the idea of conspiracy theorists is something that's been fed to us by the media. Conspiracy theories have been around for centuries, but it wasn't until the JFK assassination that the media started spinning all of our perceptions to demonize this segment of the population and call them conspiracy theorists and wackos and quack jobs and all that stuff. But if you start thinking for yourself and looking into things that we should question about our government on a regular basis, I think you too might find that there's a lot of value that could be put into thinking for ourselves and not just taking everything that's dished out to us by the mainstream. So I just wanted to share with you guys these kinds of things and kind of let you know why I stopped doing the podcast and explain myself a little bit more. I think it's really important that we don't allow our society to slide the way it's sliding. I mean, our leaders in America are they're psychopaths. They're insane. I don't know what they're thinking right now, but if you guys aren't aware, wake up a little bit. Go and find out for yourself. Start thinking for yourself. Don't believe anything that the media spins these days. There's so many different alternative media sources on the internet. And we've got to start thinking for ourselves, and we've got to save our country before we totally go into utter collapse. I mean, it's crazy the things that they continually go on. I mean, this last debacle with Syria, should we go in or should we not? It was quite obvious to almost everybody that we shouldn't. And yet the mainstream media was still beating the war drums and telling us, everybody, oh, we have to go in and take out this ruthless dictator who's using chemical weapons on his people, when it was all a bunch of lies. And we saw the same thing with Iraq, and so I think that's why people are cluing in this time. So we've held it off for this long. Now the government's shut down, and of course the media's creating this big drama over the whole thing that really is somehow playing into their hand. This isn't a real dilemma. It's all fabricated. Why exactly they're doing it, I couldn't tell you, but I know they're manipulating us one way or another at all times. So we just have to become more aware about it as society, and I just feel like my ignoring those issues and just playing along each week after week with this podcast, pretending as if there's nothing bad happening in our world, in our country, just encourages apathy. It encourages people, well, look, he's acting normal. Look at all these other things that are happening. Life is normal. Things will just keep going just like they always have. I don't think that's true. I think we're coming to a tipping point that things are historic at this point. You hear that word unprecedented more now than you've ever heard it, because it's true. The things that are happening right now are truly unprecedented. You hear the word unsustainable quite a bit right now when they're talking about the economy. When you think about that word, unsustainable, what does that mean? It means that eventually things are going to collapse, whatever topic they're talking about. Most of the time they're talking about our unfunded liabilities or whatever, when they're talking about our great big national budget and our debt and all of those things. Unsustainable, when you just say it and don't think about it, it just sounds like almost just a rhetorical word or something like that. But the implications of the fact that everybody's pretty much in agreement that we're on an unsustainable path is really quite serious. I don't see how we can just ignore that and just keep living life as if everything's fine. So I'm not going to anymore. I'm withdrawing my consent to just keep ignoring the problems. I'm gonna speak out about them, and I'm not gonna continue encouraging others to be apathetic. And so I guess that's where I'm coming from. I hope that makes sense. I want to get back to Stockholm Syndrome. So as a society, have we been so brainwashed and duped that we empathize or sympathize with our captors, believing what they're telling us, and almost to the point where we're in love with them, and whatever they decide, oh, Obama wants to do this, or our Congress said that this is the right thing to do, or they passed legislation and therefore it must be correct or right. All those types of ideas or feelings. Is this some sort of societal Stockholm Syndrome? I really want to encourage you all to watch this podcast that I watched recently. It's from my favorite alternative media source. It's called the Corbett Report, and the website is corbettreport.com, CORBETT report.com, and I'll post the link in the show notes. He just recently did a half-an-hour-long podcast on this idea of societal Stockholm Syndrome, and it's really, really informative. And if you're interested in thinking for yourself and not just being brainwashed into one way of thinking or buying everything that the state's giving us, please just take a half an hour of your time, listen to what he's got to say, and think for yourself about the implications of what that means. That's all I've got for now. I can't tell you when or how much I'll be back. I'm going to continue racing, but it's taking a back seat to these other things that I've been thinking about lately, and really the bigger picture and the things in our world right now that have so much more weight behind them. So I hope y'all understand where I'm coming from. If you want to unsubscribe and go elsewhere, I totally get it. But if you want to continue following me, and there's a lot of interest in this, these other subject matters, stay with me. Maybe we can talk more about it later. Thanks again. Until next time, Jeremiah signing out.